All right. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. You guys sent in some fascinating stuff this week about the world of veterinary medicine. Articles, research, even a call for obese cats. I am excited to dig into all of it with you.
It really is remarkable how fast things are changing in veterinary medicine. It's definitely a lot to keep up with. Let's see if we can connect some dots today.
Let's do it. And speaking of connecting dots, we have to start with this Dr. Jennifer Remnes, co-founder of Veterinary Chicago. It's a luxury pet care clinic. Seriously, like a resort for your pet. Personalized care plans, everything you can imagine. What do you think is behind this move towards this really high-end pet care experience?
Well, you think about how our view of pets has changed, right? They're family now, and just like we want the best for, well, any family member, we want it for our furry friends too.
For sure. And Dr. Remnes's journey to get this clinic going is pretty amazing. Pitching a luxury pet care clinic, I mean, come on. I bet people thought she was crazy.
I bet they did. It takes a lot of guts, that's for sure. I think we're seeing this really interesting trend of vets kind of like embracing entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
New ways to connect with clients, offer the best care possible. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's not like she's all work and no play. She climbs Mount Kilimanjaro, goes skydiving.
Yeah.
Talk about a well-rounded vet. But okay, back to Veterinary Chicago. Here's the kicker. She wants to expand to include human care services. So you go to get your dog checked up, you can get a checkup too. What do you think? Could that work?
It's definitely ambitious. It would totally change things. A lot of logistical stuff to figure out, regulations and what people even think of combining the two. I'm really curious to see how it goes.
Me too. Definitely one to watch. Okay, let's switch gears for a minute to something a little, well, less glamorous. Vaccine hesitancy. And it's not just a human thing anymore. It's impacting our pets. There's a study that shows a pretty significant number of pet owners are, well, they're not sure about vaccines for their animals. Over 20% of dog owners, 25% of cat owners said they had some concerns. Why do you think that is?
It's tough to say for sure. I think it's a bunch of things. Some people are worried about safety or maybe their pet having a bad reaction. And there's this idea floating around that we're like over vaccinating pets these days. And then you've got, of course, all that misinformation online.
Yeah, that doesn't help, especially with something as important as your pet's health. What can vets do? I mean, how do we address those concerns and make sure pets are getting the protection they need?
Honest communication, that's the biggest thing. Vets need to really listen to concerns, clear up any myths, and present the science in a way that makes sense.
Makes sense. Build that trust. Make sure pet owners feel good about asking questions and getting the right information. Okay, speaking of, well, potential health threats, there was a report about a stray cat in California testing positive for H5N1 bird flu. Should people be worried?
Well, I get it. Anytime there's a new virus, people get nervous. But the CDC says the chance of it spreading from cats to humans is really low. But this does remind us to be aware of, zoonotic diseases.
Right.
Especially if your pet spends time outside.
Right. So for people with cats, especially outdoor cats, what should they be looking for? What are the signs of bird flu in cats?
It can look like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Lethargy, not eating like they normally do, maybe coughing or sneezing, even problems with their balance and coordination. Basically, if you see anything that seems off with your cat, call your vet right away.
Good advice. All right, let's move on to some good news. Colorado State University is starting this new master's program to train veterinary professional associates. VPAs. What is a VPA? This is a totally new thing, right? Why is this such a big deal?
It kind of is a new thing. Think about it like a physician assistant, but for vets. They're going to be trained to do many of the things a vet does, but under the supervision of, well, a licensed veterinarian. We're seeing this shortage of vets, particularly in rural areas and animal shelters. So this program is a way to, address that and make sure animals get the care they need.
That's fantastic. It's like they're creating this whole new workforce dedicated to helping animals. I love it. Now, this next one, it's changing everything, every industry. Artificial intelligence, AI, it's already everywhere. How's it impacting veterinary medicine?
Oh, it's huge, especially diagnostics. Think about it. You take your dog in for an x-ray and the AI software picks up on like a tiny fracture the vet might have missed. Or with blood work, AI can analyze the results in a fraction of the time, much more accurately. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It sounds so futuristic, but it's happening right now. But does that mean, will it make things less personal? Are we going to have robots replacing vets?
That's a good question. No one wants that. The idea isn't to replace vets, but to give them like superpowered tools. Imagine if AI is handling all the paperwork and scheduling and stuff, vets have so much more time to spend with you and your pet, you know? Really focus on that personal connection and care.
That's a good point. It's all about finding that right balance. Okay, let's talk about this study that really caught my attention. It's about post-seizure symptoms in dogs with epilepsy. They're focusing on this thing called the post-ictal phase. What is that and why is it important?
So the post-ictal phase is like the recovery period after a seizure. It can be short, a few minutes, or go on for hours. And during that time, dogs can have all kinds of symptoms: disorientation, confusion, even temporary blindness.
Wow, I had no idea. So what's new here? What did they find out about this post-ictal phase?
What really jumped out was that the impact of these post-seizure symptoms can be even worse than the seizure itself, like
Yeah.
way worse for the dog's quality of life. They're disoriented, wobbly, maybe for hours. That's going to impact how they play, eat, everything.
So it's not just about stopping the seizures. It's about managing this whole recovery period.
Exactly. And now we have a better understanding of what they're experiencing, which means better care.
Okay, time for a fun one. You ready for a personality quiz? There's this article about wild introverts. And no, we're not talking about living off the grid, although maybe. What is a wild introvert? And what's the connection to veterinary medicine?
Wild introverts are people who really thrive in solitude, especially out in nature. You know, they love the outdoors, they love adventure, but they like to do it their own way.
Okay, so how do I know if I'm a wild introvert? What should I be looking for?
Do you feel energized after spending time in nature? Do you prefer smaller groups, quality over quantity? Do you feel a deep connection with animals in the outdoors? If you said yes to those, you might be a wild introvert. And actually, there are a lot of wild introverts in veterinary medicine. It kind of makes sense when you think about it, right?
Yeah, it does. Spending all day with animals, maybe working in a more rural setting, comfortable being independent. It fits. Speaking of embracing the wild side, remember that call for obese cats we talked about? Ohio State University is looking for cats to take part in a weight loss study. And get this, it involves something called poop pills.
I know, it sounds a little crazy, but it's actually this cutting-edge technique called fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT. Basically, they take healthy bacteria from a donor cat's, and transfer it to the obese cat's gut.
Wow, that's wild. So they're trying to restore the balance of bacteria in the gut to help the cat lose
What?
weight.
Exactly. It's all about the gut microbiome, and this kind of research is so important. It could really change how we approach weight management in cats.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Mm.
Okay, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, we need to talk about this issue that's been making headlines. Hundreds of vets and vet students have signed this letter asking the AVMA to change its guidelines on how animals are euthanized, especially during disease outbreaks. What's going on there? What are their concerns?
The big concern is that the current guidelines allow for methods that, they can cause a lot of suffering for the animals. Like one method, it's called ventilation shutdown plus heat, or VSD plus CAM. They basically seal animals in a barn and then raise the temperature until they die from heat stroke. It can be a very, very slow and painful death.
That's horrifying. I can't believe that's still being done.
Yeah, it's tough to hear about. But these vets are really pushing for change. They want the AVMA to, prioritize more humane ways of doing this, even when they're dealing with a lot of animals.
Good for them.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to speak up like that. They're really fighting for those animals.
They are. It's inspiring to see. It shows a real shift in how we're thinking about animal welfare.
Well, we're going to have to take a break here, but don't worry. We'll be back with more from this incredible world of veterinary medicine. Stay tuned. We're back and ready to keep going with all this amazing vet stuff you guys sent in. Before the break, we were talking about this push for more humane euthanasia methods. It's a really tough topic, but I think it's important. It shows how much vets care about animal welfare.
Yeah, I think it's a really positive sign. Vets are really advocating for animals, making sure they get treated with compassion no matter what.
Okay, let's lighten things up a bit now. We like to keep things balanced here, right? Let's talk about sleep. Maybe not the most exciting topic, but seriously, it's so important for everyone, especially vets. You know they work long, crazy hours. And sleep training, it's not just for babies. We can all benefit from good sleep habits.
Totally. Honestly, you'd be amazed how much better you feel, physically and mentally when you actually get enough sleep. It's like resetting your whole system.
Okay, so give us the tips. What are some easy things people can do to, sleep better? I'm always up for new tricks if it means I'll be more rested.
One of the simplest things, seriously, is just Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends. It helps your body get into a rhythm.
I've heard that, but I'm so bad at it on weekends. It's like my body just knows it's time to relax and forget about the schedule.
I know, it's tough. But trust me, it's worth it. And another thing, all those screens we're always on, not helping. That blue light messes with our melatonin, makes it harder to fall asleep.
Okay, good point. Reminder to put the phone down before bed.
Yeah.
But what else? Like, how can we wind down at night and tell our brains it's time to sleep?
A bedtime routine can make a big difference. Take a bath, read a book, listen to calming music, whatever helps you relax and de-stress before bed.
I like it. Lavender essential oil, maybe? Create a little spa in my bedroom?
Exactly. And don't forget about your sleep environment. Keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Blackout curtains, a white noise machine, those can really help.
Taking notes. Sleep sanctuary, here I come. Okay, back to some research now.
Yeah.
Did you know that a blood test can actually predict how well a horse with colic will do? Like their chances of survival?
It's true. There was this study that found certain things in the blood, like oxygen levels, electrolytes. Those can be really helpful in figuring out how bad the colic is and what the best treatment options are.
It's amazing what you can learn from a little blood sample, like a peek inside the body. Okay, this one's a little scary. Drug-resistant hookworms. And that's not just bad for pets, right?
Right, it's a concern. Hookworms are these nasty little parasites that live in the intestines, and they're getting harder to kill with the usual medications. Plus, they can actually spread to humans, cause this skin rash called cutaneous larva migrans. You might know it as creeping eruption.
Ugh, that sounds awful. So what can we do? How do we protect our pets and ourselves from these super hookworms?
Well, I think we need to stop doing routine deworming and be more strategic about it. So test for parasites first, only treat animals that actually have them, and switch up the types of dewormers we're using to, slow down this resistance problem.
Makes sense.
Well,
Prevention is key, right? Okay, let's take a break from the serious stuff. There's this new game show, Brain Smarts. It's all about veterinary trivia, hosted by Vet Candy, and it looks really fun.
Oh, it is. It's a great way to test your vet knowledge. They cover everything from new research and what's happening in the industry to just weird pet facts. And the hosts, Clay and Caitlin Palmer, they're hilarious.
So if you're a vet nerd and love trivia, definitely check it out. Maybe you'll be the next Brain Smarts champion. All right, let's talk about something truly amazing now. These vets in Australia, Dr. Audrey Shen and her team at Vets for Compassion, they've been working nonstop to save animals hurt in those terrible bushfires.
Yeah, these guys are heroes. It's just heartbreaking, the scenes they're dealing with. Animals with burns, infections, dehydrated. And sadly, sometimes they have to make the tough call to euthanize animals that are too badly hurt.
I can't even imagine. But those animals, they've lost their homes, their families, and these vets are there to help them, to give them comfort when they need it most.
It's more than just treating individual animals, though. It's about how climate change is impacting wildlife. As we see more extreme weather, we're going to see more animals hurt and displaced like this.
That's a really good point. Makes you think about the bigger picture. Vets aren't just caring for pets, they're protecting entire populations and ecosystems.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that we all need to be doing our part to fight climate change and protect our planet.
Couldn't agree more. All right, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from fancy pet resorts and AI taking over to these ethical questions and incredible wildlife rescues. It's this variety, this amazing range that makes veterinary medicine so fascinating.
I agree. It's a profession that's always changing, always adapting, and pushing the limits of what's possible when it comes to caring for animals.
And speaking of pushing limits, remember that letter we discussed earlier about changing euthanasia guidelines? Let's go back to that for a minute. There's a lot to unpack there, especially those ethical questions around euthanizing animals on a large scale.
Yeah, it's a really important conversation. It's never easy, You've got disease control on one side and animal welfare on the other. Finding that balance, it's tough.
And that's why this letter is so important. These vets are saying we need to do better, even in these really difficult situations.
It's about raising awareness of the suffering that happens and pushing for more compassionate ways of doing things, even in emergencies.
So what exactly are they asking for? What kind of changes are they proposing?
Well, they want the AVMA to say that certain methods, like that ventilation shutdown plus heat, it should be not recommended, basically saying it's too inhumane and we should be using other options like injections whenever possible.
That makes sense to me. Make it quick and painless, even when we're talking about a lot of animals. It's really inspiring to see these vets standing up for what they believe in. They're not afraid to speak their minds.
They're true advocates, and they're inspiring others to do the same, to stand up for animals. It's a good reminder that we can all make a difference.
Well said. One of the things I love about these deep dives is that it's not just about the science and the technology. It's about the people, the vets, their passion, their compassion, how much they truly care.
Yeah, it's about that connection between humans and animals, how much animals enrich our lives.
So if we had to pick one thing for our listeners to take away from all of this, what would it be?
I think it's this: never stop learning. The world of veterinary medicine is constantly changing, new discoveries, new technologies, new challenges all the time. By staying curious, informed, and getting involved, we can all make things better for animals.
I love that. All right, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible journey into the world of veterinary medicine. I think it's time to wrap up this incredible journey into the world of veterinary medicine. But before we go, I will leave you with one final thought. Remember Dr. Remnes, that luxury pet care clinic, Vetique Chicago. She really went for it. It created something totally new and different. That spirit, that willingness to push boundaries, I think that's what keeps vet med moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's new ways to do surgery, better pain management, even those, what were they, poop pills, the drive to improve animal care, it's really exciting.
It is. And we can't forget about those vets who are pushing for more humane euthanasia practices. They're not afraid to challenge the system, to fight for those animals.
It reminds us that change takes time. You need people who are willing to speak up, to keep pushing for what's right. And look, they're already making a difference. People are talking about it. Things are starting to change.
It shows that every single one of us can make a difference, whether you're a vet, a pet owner, or just, someone who loves animals.
It's all about that shared passion for making things better for animals.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the, constantly changing world of veterinary medicine, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Never stop learning. There's always something new in vet med, new research, new technology, new challenges. If we stay curious, stay informed, and get involved, we can all help create a better world for animals.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So there you have it, folks, our whirlwind tour of the latest and greatest in veterinary medicine. We've covered so much, from those high-end pet resorts and AI doing diagnostics to the really tough ethical stuff and those amazing wildlife rescuers.
Yeah.
It's this huge variety, this incredible scope that makes this field so amazing. It's science, it's compassion, it's always pushing the limits, making us rethink how we see animals and how we care for them.
It's definitely a world worth exploring, a world worth fighting for, a world with so much hope for the future.
And on that note, we'll leave you to think about everything we talked about today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep speaking up for all animals, big and small.